Hello everyone, this video is dedicated to a dear friend and chess coach. To honor his birthday, I decided to look at one of his games where he played a very nice rook end game. So let's dive right in. So we join in the game at move 35 where black enjoys the only open file in the position and white is trying to activate his rook, which he does on the next move. Now both sides enjoy open files for their rooks, and it's now time for a bit of aggressive action, which black decides on by playing rook into e1, whereby he's going for the c3 and the b3 weaknesses. So now white decides to go for a similar plan by attacking um, by going for the c6 and the a7 weaknesses. Um, so play continues. Rook into c1. Now black attacks the c3 pawn instead of the b3 pawn because c3 falls with a check. So now c3 once c3 falls, b3 will fall. So to prevent this, white decides to advance the b pawn and prevent both weaknesses falling in succession. So play continued. Now white has got two new weaknesses, the b pawn and the f pawn, which black attacks immediately, and white can do nothing about it. So he now has to go for the aggressive plan by playing rook into a8, which he does. And the two weaknesses fall. Okay, the first one falls, and the king advances, and now the c6 weakness is attacked, and the b4 weakness falls. Now, after this chaotic, somewhat forced sequence, um, we now have got two passed pawns for white and four passed pawns for black. The number of passed pawns at this point doesn't really matter. What matters is which pawn will queen first. So now black plays after white rook b6. Black plays a very nice move, rook into e4, and white chooses king to d3. Um, I'm not so sure about this choice, but one important theme in pawn races is you should actually check if one of your passed pawns can queen with check. And now black has got the opportunity to queen his f pawn with a check, which is the plan he did not choose. He decides on putting his rook behind a passed pawn. This is also a very important theme in endgames. Regardless of whose passed pawn it is, you have to put your rook behind a passed pawn. So um, he had play continued in critical fashion by playing f4. Um, Play would have continued something like this, okay, preventing the fall of g7 pawn and the rook going into f7. Okay, so in this chaotic situation, whatever happens, black's pawn will queen with a check, and once that happens, um, it's either black wins or he can have the opportunity to play countless checks um, and eventually get a draw. So in this position, black is playing for two results, but instead he goes for this move. Though it's principled in a way that one is following um, guidelines from manuals, but it's actually a losing move. Um, Now white has got two choices, either to advance um, the a pawn or the c pawn. Um, Here white decides to advance the a pawn, but the most precise move was to advance the c6 pawn, which would have resulted in in a study like endgame where white will have a rook against 2 pawns. Okay, so play, if c6 would have been played, play would have continued something like this. And now the c pawn is unstoppable. So the rook has to be given up. And these isolated pawns will fall. And now the white king is too close to black's advancing pawn. So eventually he will capture them all and checkmate black. This study like endgame is similar to Giri versus MVL from Tata Steel that was played in January. So you should check that out. Okay, let's go back into the game. So A6 was played instead. Um, Now black should try maybe to force the king away from the f pawn and advance his f pawn as far as possible. But instead, black decides to go back to e4 and try to go back to the 8th rank, stopping these pawns. At the same time, preventing the king from crossing the e file into the f file. Um, but now it's a little too late because now he's facing two fast and two furious passed pawns, which he created by his moves rook a4, rook e4, um, basically throwing two moves at white and say do as you please. I'll give you two free tempi and yeah, play continues. Now one of the pawns will queen, so he decides to call it a day. A very nice endgame by the birthday boy. So yeah, I'll throw down the PGN file in a link in the description, and you can enjoy it and analyze it for yourself. Um, okay, I put in a bit of notes in there, so yeah, enjoy. Thank you for your time.